What is going on, guys? Today is the launch of a new video series. I put out a community post the other day talking about the fact that I'm going to launch the hobby report. That's what you're going to see today. And it is fundamentally an hour-long podcast type format. We will have guests on in the future. But essentially, it is me and Jason, aka Russell Westbrook Cards on Instagram, talking about the hobby, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll sort of have differing opinions on things. He's not as critical or as, negative all the time that I am. But it's essentially going to be us talking about the hobby with a bit more detail. Obviously, I talk about news and things like that all the time in my regular videos, but those things only go for, 8 to 15 minutes at a time. So it's often really hard for me to share all the thoughts that I have in a specific video format. And what I've also found is that people, specifically want, that type of content from me. So, this is a way for me to try and talk about a bit more detail when you guys have questions, obviously, in the comments. And it will be a bit more debatey, if that makes sense. Jason and I don't agree on every single thing that we talk about. I'm a bit more negative than him, like I think I said a little bit earlier. So it'll be a pretty cool format. I've already got a few guests lined up, but it's essentially going to be something that we do on a fortnightly basis, maybe, once a month, depending on how our schedules go. But we are both based in Australia. So this is going to be a good avenue for me to sort of get content out there, because when I've tried to do this in the past with people based in the US, it's really hard to work through time zones. So this is going to be easy for us to pre-record and then share our thoughts, like I said, talking about all the big news and happenings that are going on within the hobby within the past 2 to 4 weeks. So we'll really appreciate your thoughts on this one. I've launched a second channel called The Hobby Report, where I'll collaborate on these posts. So they'll be posted on the Dan the Cardman channel. But because I don't want the YouTube shorts to clog things up, I'll be posting those on the other channel. It's essentially just a way for me to keep, both the long form and short form content separate, because you guys maybe don't know too much about YouTube. But essentially, people that post shorts often get burned on their main channels because you don't get the right subscribers, watching both types of videos. You guys don't need the full detail on that. Maybe I can talk about that in the future. But fundamentally, the Hobby Report is a pretty exciting thing that I'm, launching today. Let me know your thoughts, like I said. And in the future, we'll have, mailbags and, viewer questions. So if there's anything you ever want, raised or want our thoughts on, leave it down in the comments below of this video, and sort of we'll go from there. As always, thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy it. Please give the feedback down below, and we'll see you after this episode. Cheers. Perfect. How's it going, everyone? So this is going to be a new video series that we're hoping to do at least on a fortnightly basis, maybe a little bit longer than that. We'll see how our schedules go, but it's going to be essentially more of a, insightful and maybe a little bit less critical than what I normally do on my channel when we talk about things about the hobby. So we'll talk about like topics that come up, interesting things. We've got a pretty packed agenda today on, things like tops removing seals on boxes, the grading inconsistencies, grading volumes. We'll talk about some of our PC as well, but essentially just talk about things that have happened within the hobby over the last few weeks, and just, get some good discussion going, and then chat with you guys down in the comments, as always. So, you know me, it's Daniel. We've got, do you want to be called Jay? Do you have a preference of what you want to be called?
Sure, Jason's fine. Jason's
fine. So we've got
Jason
here. So,
fan, as you know, making
a
guest appearance.
I've had you on before, and we've talked about a few really good things. And I think like the topic that popped off really well in the past was talking about like the serial numbered cards and things like that, which is even more prevalent today. So, really keen to get your thoughts on some of the things we'll talk about today. But like I said, we'll probably do this, on a fortnightly to, once a month basis, depending on schedules, and just have a really good chat on the hobby, and maybe even down the line try and get some guests on. I was fortunate enough to interview Jim Jeffries the other day. I don't think I've told you this yet. But the interview didn't go super well. His internet kept cutting out. So we're going to do it again tomorrow. But he's raised his hand on wanting to come on and do more videos, and maybe even doing some live streams. So that should be a bit of fun as well. So stay, tuned for that. But before we get started, is there anything you wanted to flag or talk about?
No, I'm happy to go through. I'm interested to see your discussion with him and what he says. And I'm interested to see what questions you ask him. Just as you know, I'm quite against the negativity of some of your videos. I have a different view on things. We've talked about this, so I'm quite keen to see how you sort of pick his brain and what he's sort of thinking. So that'd be good.
Yeah, it was a really good chat. It was just his like internet kept cutting out, and he had a hard stop. So he said we can do it again. I'll try and edit them together, but it was more just talking about like his collecting journey and things like that. And he's obviously a pretty funny guy. He mentioned a few things that I might need to cut out of my video because it might get me deplatformed. But it was really good. So he picked up. I'm not sure if you saw that one of one.
Felix.
LeBron James.
Over at Golden,
yeah, he's selling at Golden now. It's like $6,000 or something, right? He when I talked about it last time, people thought he got a loaded box and Topps gave it to him, but he actually bought that off eBay and busted it when he was back home in Australia. He busted it over Christmas with his son, which was pretty cool.
He's not someone I would expect to have a loaded box anyway. Like again, the loaded boxes, you got to think of the audience and who's opening it.
exactly. I didn't even record the video, right? So he will talk to that as well. But pretty funny, pretty cool. Like he also got a Cooper Flag, I think it was, autograph in the same box. It was actually the first pack that he opened had the LeBron in there, which is actually pretty funny. But I'll keep that for the next conversation when you see that video drop. The first thing I want to talk to today was the Topps story coming out of the UK. I can bring it on screen for those watching. Obviously, some people will probably only be listening to this, but if you just give me a sec to bring it up. But essentially, they are removing seals off of boxes when they sell it to customers in store. This is at their Fanatic Collect store in London, which I thought is really interesting. A lot of people are sort of pushing back on it, which is, a pretty fair assessment. I talked about this in my video the other day, so the viewers probably already know my thoughts. But, at a high level, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't think that many people have seen it, and it's really referring to the fact that they're trying to stop scalpers, right, getting these boxes. And what that is saying that people are going to come in store, buy these boxes, and they're going to cut them open, and you're going to have no seal on them, basically. And that as part of that, it's supposed to stop reselling. Now, we both know a fellow person whose video you haven't seen yet, but I tend to agree that it's great for the hobby, right? We're going to stop, in theory, that the resale, and people are going to be there and open the packs in store, which is what traditionally it was. I'm a bit concerned though about the secondary market, because I think you've got the same sort of view on this, maybe, but there is a potential then of people starting to go, well, boxes don't come sealed anymore. This is a legitimate box, and I'm selling it online, and then we start to run towards that. I think of Logan Paul, the Pokemon issue. Yep. Where people are going to start to take these boxes out, all these packs out. In a hobby box, for example, there's going to generally be one sort of hit. They're going to start to go through weighing packs and things like that because they're not sealed anymore. One of the things right now they do is weigh, blaster boxes or booster packs and things like that to work out what the weight difference is. So I think it's going to open up a can of worms there, where people who are going to take it out with them basically are going to start to weigh packs out and then sell them individually. You think back as well to back in the day, old collector style, the packs used to say on the back, if it was from a hobby box, retail box, what it was. I'm not sure what Topps are doing with that nowadays, so it's going to be interesting to see how it's sold.
They don't specify. I think they maybe still do it for like TCG stuff. There's some Star Wars packs that I'm pretty sure on the back they say hobby still on the back of them, but I'm not sure about how consistent that is. But yeah, that's completely right. And it's a really slippery slope, because I think if they sort of normalize it, that's the new issue you're going to face, right? You're going to fix the whole scalping problem, but you're probably going to create a lot of manipulation and mistrust going on within the industry. When these first popped off, I thought it was going to be everything they were selling online, but it's only in store, which is, a little bit disappointing. It's not uncommon. We've seen, I think Pokemon stores do that, like the official Nintendo stores and things like that. I know some TCG stores do that, but, I think it needs to go a little bit further. Like I would like to see them do this for everything. And I know that sucks from a collector perspective on those that want to collect sealed product. But, from my perspective, I'd much prefer being able to buy product at an affordable price and miss out on being able to keep something sealed. And that's a scary thing to think about, because if you look at, how this thing would go down, then they'd potentially have a risk there of people going through boxes before they ship them out. There's so much, additional things that need to happen with them monitoring that. It's just scary at the same time.
How do they, I think one of the things is a bit unknown from the post they made, and that's, are they expecting people to only open them in store, or is it that
I think that they're happy to, they'll give it to you, just they're going to cut it the seal.
And see, that's the thing, right? Like, and I think that's part of the thing. Like, I agree with you that they need to go that way completely, but then, of course, like I said, people can start to do that next thing, and I don't know how they stop people weighing packs out and mixing cards in, opening, resealing packs, which is the next thing that would happen, and selling them as that.
Yeah, well, that's I think people would go down that path too, right? Like the whole card porn situation of getting fake wrappers, like what it did with BBC stuff. You might see a huge rise in Topps shrink wraps all of a sudden making their way to the secondary market. So,
and so how, and I guess one of the things, and I agree with you, like it's a great way to go moving forward, but I try and think about those collectors too who don't have a hobby shop nearby. Like, I don't have one near me here.
Well, we don't have one here.
Things like, so how do you get one, right? That's the limitation.
Have to buy directly from them. You have to buy it online. And like the only reason why this is appealing is because I think if they're doing this, there's going to be more product to buy online. That's the only hope. But then if you still got the bots and scalpers doing it and buying them regardless, it doesn't really fix anything.
No, it's and exactly, and I think that's going to be the problem. Like if you open every box and that becomes the norm, scalpers will just buy that, and again, they're all going to be taken before the average collector gets to buy them, and
Yep.
so on.
So it might not even fix anything, right? And the point I was getting to earlier, where this also raises some concerns, is that it gives Tops and Fanatics even more power, because now they can potentially control. Let's hypothetically say that this actually does work and people no longer buy these on the secondary market because there's too much mistrust. And then the only place you can buy a sealed product is on Fanatics Live via a breaker. That just funnels so much more customer channels their way, which is concerning, because then they have full control over who it goes to and how much it sells for, and could then they do a lot more manipulation. And when you've got people asking all these questions and pressuring them already, I think that's another can of worms that maybe we don't need to go down.
Do you think people care? Do you think people care? Like, this is my sort of view on the hobby, and you've commented on it for years, but like things happen every week. There's so much fraud. There's so much scamming. You see all this stuff where it is becoming a monopoly, and people just kind of go, like, complain about it, like, shout from the rooftop, but don't actually do anything about it. Like, no one stops buying.
I think like it's a weird one, because I think people don't care today because the times are good. I think if we see a bit of a downturn, I think more concern will come about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, if we do see that downturn, is there going to be enough people to care? Like, there's lots of things that Fanatics can fix. I had that meeting, like I said, on some recent videos with Mike Mahan, who is the CEO of Fanatics Collectibles, and I talked about some of those things with him about vetting breakers better and holding the platform more accountable, and trying to enforce certain things and trying to make exclusive arrangements. And they didn't seem too receptive to that. I think their view is like they want to keep a free market, right? They don't want to be seen as being like a monopoly, even though they technically are. So, like I don't know, like in terms of like the wider industry and that control, I don't think people care. Like we've seen it time
and
this
and again, I have a slight affiliation to Fanatics, but I totally agree with that aspect. But like the thing about all of this is, right, why I'm trying to think of it from the business side, as you know, why would they vet it? Because again, they don't really care, because consumers aren't talking about it with their wallets and saying, well, we're not going to buy from you now because of this. But why would they vet people the same as eBay don't stop the mystery packs, the chase packs?
Yeah,
they're on eBay.
Well, I think eBay don't, because it's not material to them, right? Yeah. They do so much more, so it's not a huge problem. But this is like the core to Fanatics business, so they need to care. My biggest concern is if they don't fix it, you're going to reach a boiling point where things go sour pretty quickly. And I still think the industry is primed for government intervention. I think that's going to happen at some point, because there's so much money being spent. There's so much money being spent that if I'm in that area, I'd be wanting some of that piece of the pie, right? So
at what point does it become a tax thing? Right? This is something I've been talking to a few people about lately. Watches, I don't think you love watches, you've talked about before. I'm not sure if watches get taxed if you sell buy a Rolex and sell it, for example. But like same thing with cards. At what point do they say, well, hold on, we consider that a market, basically, because that's where it's sort of heading, especially in the US, as a alternate asset. So what point does it become taxable?
Yeah, well, those are the questions that are going to come up, right? So I'm curious to see what they do there and how they manage it, but they have to, because the other thing I also flagged to Mike in that meeting was, I feel like your everyday average collector is not being thought about, and I feel like product is so inaccessible right now, which is why something like this I think is really good. But my concern is, if you're not looking after these people today, are they going to be there in 10 years' time? Are they going to be so disillusioned with the hobby they don't want to participate anymore? And if that is the case, is there going to be a hobby long term? Because I feel like a lot of the money being spent today is by people that are just doing it because there's lots of money to be made. They don't actually care about it. And like you and I, as your traditional collector, the people that were collecting cards when it wasn't cool, when we're building sets for kids up until now, like we're an annuity for this business. We've made it relevant. And if they're not looking after us, I think there's a problem that's going to happen long term. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
I agree. But I feel like I start to think, what's their target market? Are they really caring about that, or are they seeing it as in the people with money coming into the hobby and they can buy these boxes? Like we were speaking about, one of the things you're going to talk about later is like what's the best things you've pulled from boxes. I open a Pokemon box every Christmas. I don't, just for fun. I don't know what I'm looking for, but it's something that is least relatively accessible in terms of price. I don't buy basketball boxes anymore just because they're too expensive. So, I buy singles all the time, but I just can't justify that because obviously it's again, we can talk about gambling another time, but yeah, it's obviously it's a gamble, right? And that's what you're opening for.
You just get burned too much. Like even Pokemon now, it's very expensive. Like that's almost hard to do. Like Scalpers are like crazy here in Australia. I actually went to the shops this morning to get some stuff for my daughter, and I went to EB Games, and they actually had a few of like the 3-pack sets, which I managed to get and open. But that's few and far between. I was on a live stream the other day with Professor Sports Cards, and Mike Geo, who is the host of Sports Card Nonsense, and he's a breaker, was sort of talking about the fact that you can still break product if you want to. You can enter a break. It is still accessible. You can still break because it's there. But the point is, boxes were like $200-300 10 years ago for a hobby box. You're guaranteed 2 autos in some boxes plus memorabilia cards. Like Select 13-14 is my favorite set of all time. I'm pretty sure that had 2 autos and 2 memorabilia cards per box or something along those lines. And that was an affordable rip. I'd get, trash most likely because you'd still get skunked, but you'd at least get an autograph. Whereas today, if you want to do the same thing, you're paying $700-800 and you're not going to get anything.
That range has changed. You used to, pay $200 for a box. You might get something that was worth $50 and it was fine, right? But now it's you get a $50 card in a $1,000 box, and it hurts a lot.
And like he was sort of talking in that thing about, well, you can still do it, but for me as an average person, like I can't justify spending $1,000 on a box of cards. Like sure, you could say, well, you're paying $300 a month before, maybe you just don't buy anything for 3 months, but it's not the same because by the time you get to paying it, I could put that towards my kids. I could put that towards a single. Like it's not a small amount of money. It's not a throwaway amount of money. It's not like, oh, I'm not going to go out to dinner with the wife this week. We're going to buy a box of cards instead. It's completely out of touch for your average everyday collector. And that's
my Pokemon boxes, $400 it was at Christmas, but it's like a once a year and that's it. But again, it's that tolerance, and 400 is my sort of maximum. Like I'd love to open an NT box flawless. There's no way in hell I'm paying, excuse anyone.
That'd be awesome.
$11,000 or whatever dollars. There's no way I can justify that, even if I had the money.
I've always wanted to open a box like Eminence or Flawless, but it's just insane, right? It's so.
Hence where I guess Mike's coming from, right? In terms of like it's changing, and it's whether we evolve with it, I guess. And that's where he's saying you can still get those boxes, but you have to participate a different way. And they're trying to make it accessible.
Yeah. But that's the part that annoys me, because that's like normalized now. That's the only way to do it. That's who they're designing this industry for, which is why I think so many people feel aggrieved, right? Because it's not the hobby that you and I remember. And obviously, things change. We need to get used to the times. I think overall the industry is 100% better now than it was in the past because there are so many cooler cards out there. It's so much more accessible in terms of buying singles, and going to shows. Like here in Australia, there'd be a show once every couple of years kind of thing. Now there's, one every other month now, mostly a TCG. But even for us, it's like a lot more buzz around it. So there's so many cool things that you can buy, and there's like cooler sets being made. But, the element of ripping packs is obviously not.
And I do wonder about that though. Is it because, like you said, it's so much now about what you can pull and how much you can make for it? Like there's been talk about, trying to make the more expensive ones for those people who want to be, quote unquote investors and trying to do that sort of thing versus making cheaper boxes for the average person to just open who want to open, right? But if they do that, I feel like then people will complain, well, they're not getting something that's $1,000 value out of a $100 hobby box, right? Because they still want to make money. Or
the only thing I think of that they could fix it with, like I said this years ago, but everyone really pushed back and hated it, was just increase like print run of base cards and your non-super low pop serial numbered cards and short prints and things like that. So at least a box is worth $50 or $100. It's accessible. Like sure, they've made maybe now doing 5 times the amount of boxes and spreading out the hits within them, but at least you're keeping the scarce cards scarce.
Which is funny you say that, right? Because that's kind of what they've done. Like, and I think we're going to talk about print runs in a second, but like Topps have they've multiplied, even though people said they wouldn't, and it would be the end of Panini and Topps would bring it back, but they've multiplied their print runs, but they haven't dropped the price.
Yeah, they've actually increased
up. Yeah. Which is exactly what you were saying. They're doing the kind of thing that you'd expect. They're printing more, so there's making it truly scarcer, I guess, in terms of odds. But they actually increased the box price, so now they've got bigger profit.
They've like screwed us over on both sides of the algorithm kind of thing, or the equation. Sorry. And they also talked about like reducing serial numbered cards. They've brought more back. Like,
I think we're going to talk about that, right? Like,
yeah. Which is one of the things that Ruben was like pushing for, but. The only thing I was thinking of with regard to them removing the shrink wrap was people maybe will weigh packs, but maybe Topps could go down the path of printing more redemptions, and people don't want redemptions. But if the hits are not actually in the packs themselves, but they're ready to go, like the second, like let's hypothetically say they're not putting them in the packs, but they've got them there sitting there ready to be mailed out. And they put then those placeholder cards in there, that might help with some of that weight. And sure, you have to get it mailed away, but maybe that helps them have QC as well.
You had and this is the thing, people complain about redemptions nowadays, and I'm I'm a realist, and I complain about Panini as much as I complain about Topps. They're all the same. Like I don't get why people hated Panini and then love Topps, because Topps are doing just as many redemptions. But
pick and size.
Back in the day, like it was no different. Like I still remember getting an Upper Deck, and I've still got my set from the Behind the Glass set. Like I got the gold little redemption thing. I had to send off to the US, and we're in Australia, obviously. So I sent it off, and they got the cards. The redemptions existed back then too.
Yeah.
And it was accessible. So like maybe that is, like I said, a good way of thinking about going, well, how do we make sure every pack weighs exactly the same? You don't need to put those things in there, and there's no incentive for people to try and do that, right? Because they're going to have to go through that process of sending redemptions in. And I guess, you come from an audit background, you can start to flag, why are people getting thousands of redemptions? Because they're weighing packs.
Yeah, exactly. And they'd have all that information. If they set up their data input right and their monitoring, they'd be able to spot that really easily. Like I think the biggest issue in this space is so many of these companies are still set up like they were in the 90s.
Yeah.
There is so much room for innovation. They're primed for it. There's so much power there, so much analytics that can be leveraged, that they are just dragging their feet. But
I still just don't think they care, right? Because like you said before, like when the wicket's good, like why care? They don't need to rock the boat because, and this is the eBay thing. I know you said before eBay have different things to worry about, but I think the issue with the chase packs is they don't care because it's making the money. Like they sell,
we're same with the allegations towards Propstein and other.
They get some complaints, but they probably get 80% of people who are naive and don't understand chase packs are going to have no card in there, like that you're supposed to be chasing. They just don't complain because they don't know any difference. So they get 20% complaints, refund them, but they're still getting the revenue on 80%. So
yes, definitely. It's fair. Like they're going to reach a point where they're going to have to care. So my point is, give a crap before you're forced to give a crap.
Intervention,
right? Like you want to fix it before somebody else tells you how to fix it, because if they're coming in telling you how to fix it, it's going to be too little too late, and it's going to be way worse off. It's going to be interesting, yeah. In terms of the second thing we had on the list, it was your topic around grading inconsistencies.
Yeah, and this isn't just grading inconsistencies, it's just about grading in general, right? And I think, again, I'm not one for promoting channels, but Market Movers, Sports Card Investor, Teapot, this video right here, it was a really good video, and I really encourage people who do grade themselves, people who buy graded cards, to actually have a look at it. Now, right at the end, I think about a couple of minutes from the end, you'll see the end results. But what Teapot did here is, and that's that image just there, over a year period, he did a year experiment here where he started off with a Griffey card on the right. That was a BGS 9.5 to begin with. That he bought as a 9.5 that he cracked and went through a process to CGC. He got a CGC 9 next. It went to SGC. It's in out of order here on his screen, but it went to SGC next. It came back trimmed, authentic evidence of trimming. Then it went to PSA after that and became a PSA 6. Then it went back and he went to Arena Club next, and it got 8.5. And then he sent it to Tag, and Tag, who everyone's all about AI, said it was oversized. So not trimmed, but oversized. And then it went back to SGC. It came back in SGC 9 after SGC said it was trimmed last time. And then it went to PSA, who graded an 8. And then it ended up back at Beckett, starting from 9.5, and they said it was altered. Which is quite insane, and I haven't really seen him speechless ever, but it's a good video to see. He walks out of the room because he's just absolutely shocked.
Yeah,
he did the same thing.
Darts at a board, right?
What was that? Sorry,
they're basically throwing darts at a dartboard.
Correct, and that's what I want to talk about, I guess, here. And he does a really good coverage of it. But the Mewtwo, as you can see, too, went through that same process. It was a 7 originally. An 8 originally, sorry, went to Tag as an 8, then to Arena as a 7, then SGC as an 8, and that was all looking good. And then went to BGS, to PSA, came back as 7. So they were quite consistently 7s and 8s, and then it went to BGS and came back authentic altered. And I think that's my point here. Like, and he sort of talks about it, and I'm against people saying, grading is a scam, because I don't think that's the right thing for it. I think the thing is about awareness of people understanding that grading is just a perception of some person looking at the card, right? And my concern with it is that you'd see nowadays the premium on PSA 10s, right? If you put, and I see people do this all the time on Instagram, they'll have a PSA 9 next to a 10, cover the labels, and you tell me which one's a 10.
Yep.
Yeah, people will pay 5 times that amount for a 10. Mm-hmm. It's very much going back to the idea of, and Teapot talks this really well, but it's about going, what's the card, right? The card should be the thing that's the value, not the number that some person who looks at it for 30 seconds, like, PSA said that's how long they spend on average. I think, I don't know who it was, I can't remember, but did the video, with the old PSA grader.
Was it Boston Card Hunter maybe?
Yeah, it was actually, yeah. And he's talking about this, 30 seconds, and they've got the number they need to do a day. And so you're paying an extreme amount for some person looking at 30 seconds and just their view on it, and 10s often look worse than 9s. And so a good example of that's like, the card itself should be intrinsically what's valuable. So like we talked about rarity before, and we can talk about it a bit more in the print run stuff, but like, I think back to the whole point of like a Topps Chrome Steph Curry rookie gold refractor, right? Like the point is to have the card because it's rare. Like they don't exist.
Yep.
I don't get why someone would want to pay such an extreme amount for a 10 over a 9 or an 8 like that, right? Because again, it's just someone's perception. And we look at that recent example of the Pokemon. As you saw, the 16 million the other day, that was the PSA 9, and again, it was 5 million as a PSA 9, right? And then 16 and a half as a PSA 10, which it shouldn't have been according to most people. But I think that's the concern here. Like, I don't think people really realize how inconsistent grading is. Like it's talked about, people say they send back a PSA 8, comes back a 10. I've done that. I've sent 6s back. They've come back as 10s, which is this just makes no sense to me. But I think, again, we're putting too much emphasis on what that label says, right? Like that shouldn't be the way. We should be going back to going, okay, it's a card that matters. I can spend 2 minutes looking at a card and make my own determination of it versus trusting some random person who's probably less qualified, because they've been trained by PSA to what to look at, every collector should really know anyway. And they've been there working there 1 month and they just do a 30-second quick scan next.
Yep, it goes back to the old saying, right? Buy the card, not the holder. But I'm biased when it comes to this sort of stuff because obviously I've always had that mindset. Like, this is not surprising. Like I said, I haven't seen the video yet, so I'll go back and check it out. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but obviously being based in Australia, it's really hard to sort of crack it. I'd be spending a fortune on slabs and mailing and things like that. And if I was to get somebody overseas to do it for me, I'd want to.
This took a year. Right? This took him a year, right? This was the experiment. And I don't think anyone has actually done this level of experiment. Like, people have done 3, but to go through that,
not to this detail. Yeah.
This was a carry on from his previous one. So he did it part way through video and then decided to add in more grading companies and go around. And I think the shocking thing for this is, like, again, that it went from SGC saying it was authentic but trimmed to, Tag saying it was oversized. So the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And again, people talking about Tag and how good they are and things like that. But then to go back to like Beckett again, who originally has a 9.5 and then say it's altered.
Yep.
And this is my point. Like, everyone's paying all this money for, let's say, Beckett a 9.5 and saying, yeah, it's great, it's amazing. But the fact that Beckett can go 9.5 to altered, like, they're slapping a label on it. And going back to the monopoly thing, like, PSA know this. And do they? I don't know. But do they just slap a 10 on expensive cards so they can get that big premium payment?
Well, even if they don't intentionally, right, there's an inherent bias there with people. Like, same thing with the Logan Paul Illustrated card, right, where it was previously a 9. When it went through the reholder process, it was actually meant to get regraded. So let's assume they did go ahead and regrade it. The person who's grading that card knows whose card it is. They really want to be the person to misgrade the card or put it as a 9 or an 8 when it's Ken Golden and Logan Paul involved. Like, they talk all the time about the fact that Nat Turner grades with his own company and things like that, and how it's really independent and you don't know who it is. But with some cards, you know who they are, right? Who the owners are. And in the back of that person's mind, it's playing. So, you're not
going to say it, right? It's your boss. It's your boss. You're not going to, you know, he's collecting the whole PMG green set. You know these things. You know exactly what's out there.
Yep.
A good example is there's a guy, great Instagram. I think it's Benjamin, E18 or whatever the account is. I don't know if you've seen it, but he's collecting the 2018 green Kaboom set.
Right.
50 cards in the set. Yeah. And he's got 25 of them now. But same thing. Like any cards that come through that, you know exactly who's owning it, or the odds are, because that's his set. And again, I agree. There's an inherent bias there. I don't think conflicts you talk about all the time.
Yeah, well, it's why independence is very important, and people will think, well, we have a strong, like, when it comes to independence, you need to be at arm's length with everything, and it's not just independent in reality; it's in mind as well. Like, you need to remove that completely. It's a very important thing because perception, the perceived threat to breaking independence, is like as bad as actually breaking your independence, right?
Correct.
So they need to sort the crap out. But from a PSA perspective, they make so much money off upcharges and things like that that I don't truly care. There's a really simple way they could fix this. They simply have to implement like a 4-eye check or a 6-eye check. And if people don't know what that is, it means every single card goes through at least 2 people. Yep. And if I was to design a grading company, the way I would do it is if I'm grading it, I spend 30 seconds looking at the card. You get a second person to look at it. If the grades are the same, it passes. But if they're materially different, like one person says it's a 9, the other person says it's a 6, then it goes to a third person to sort of say, hey, I'm going to be the deciding factor. And then if it is still too materially different, it goes to somebody else. But that's how it should be designed. And that's how I thought they were designed, but they're not. I don't think any of them do that. I don't think any of them do that. And that's how you would fix it overnight. But that's going to slow things down so significantly that it's going to be a huge hit to their revenue streams that they don't want to fix it. And I don't think the hobby cares. That's the scary thing. I don't think people care.
That is right. The hobby doesn't care. Like, and I said, so many people, there's a lot of new people who don't get the inconsistencies, and they are told a 10's the best. And it's like, okay, but again, there's no difference between a 10, 9, and 8 in looking at it. But I think people just don't care. It's like, well, that's what I sort of getting before. Like, do people really care? It's just like they know scams are happening. They know these things happen. It's just, you know, stick your head in the sand, and that it is what it is.
Yep.
Right. And it's kind of, it's scary that there's I just don't know. Like I said, I agree with you in the way of the audit process and stuff like that. You know, it's fine to have 30 seconds look, but you, again, have a second view. And if it's the same, you know, go on, right? There's 2 views on it. But again, like you said before, then it's a minute looking at it. It's costing them, you know, they're losing half their profits.
Exactly. Like I think the only way PSA would ever truly care is if they become publicly listed again, because I think they'll then have to fall under certain audit regulations, and I'd be shocked if their auditor didn't, you know, enforce. They'd have to have a better provision when it comes to, like, because they pay out, right? The reason I'm talking about this is because they pay out if they've misgraded something.
Yep.
And when you're looking at these kinds of differences, they are all material, but the auditor would come in and say, like, you guys need to have a robust process around this. You need to have a provision on your books that is a certain amount of money that you have to hold there for when you do in fact pay out. And, you know, PSA as a company would want that provision to be as small as possible, because that's just wasted cash sitting there. So they then want to be, you know, holding their grading process more accountable, because if their grading is more accurate and consistent, they have to hold a smaller provision, because then they're more comfortable with the things they're going to be grading incorrectly. But, you know, until that happens, they don't care. They make so much money. They're grading 2 million cards a month.
Yeah. And my question is, though, so think back to the TOPS audit, right? Generally, you'd want an independent auditor. How independent was that? And that was about the random packs and insertions and things like that. Now, I believe from my reading, again, is that TOPS, you know, dictated what the audit was about, you know, and guided I think, I can't remember if it was Deloitte or whoever did it over there. I think it was Deloitte, actually.
Deloitte, yeah, did the first one.
But again,
well, there's different types of audits, right? So, like, I have to be careful with how I talk about it, right? Just given what I do for a living, but there are different types of audits. So for a publicly listed company, they'd have to go through a financial statement audit, which is really rigorous and really robust. But you can have independent audits done over specific processes, and you as the person, you know, wanting that audit would say, hey, I want you to look at these specific things for me and tell me how it works. And that's what the auditor comes in and looks at. So they're very hyper-focused in on that specific area because that's all they've been asked to look at. There's obviously many other things in and around that could be impacting it, but they're only being asked to look at one specific thing. So it's not like whatever the magic bullet kind of saying is, it's not going to fix everything and identify everything, but a financial statement audit for something like a PSA, I think would, because grading is material to their business. It's what they do. And they'd have to have provision in place. Like insurance companies have to keep, you know, estimates on their books. Banks have to keep estimates on their books, you know, especially following the GFC about, you know, loan loss provisioning and expected credit loss and things like that, because they need to make sure they're giving loans to good customers. And they need to have some, you know, risk in there and things like that they have to manage, but they'll have to hold that money on their books to you know, account for the fact that things might go under. So when, you know, banks and customers default, banks don't collapse. PSA would have to do something similar. Whether or not we see it, I don't know. I don't think they care. They're making money hand over fist. And obviously this story is like really interesting. I haven't seen the video, so I'll go back and watch it. But people don't care. People want good grades, not accurate grades. Jeremy Lee says that all the time. He talks about why the fact like Tag hasn't kicked off because obviously they're doing AI grading and their results are pretty good in terms of, the findings they give back to you as the submitter. But people don't want accurate grades; they want good grades, and that's never going to change.
There are,
So,
speaking of tag, there are some limitations still in that, which I think is holding them back, and that is to do with that they still can't identify coloring and things like that. I don't know if that's something they're going to be able to do.
only
They tend to be looking.
Only a tiny part of their process is actually AI, right? They're only doing it for like the centering, aren't they?
Yeah, there's still a people process to it. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realize about tag. They just think it's AI, and it's like, well, no, they're still using human element as part of it. It's the same as PSA. They've got AI, and I don't like the term, but they've got AI as part of their incoming, process to identify the card and match it all up versus the grading of the card itself, which is a person looking at for 30 seconds. And this is where I think is the human element the best we've got, which is my point, right? That this is a human who's looking at things and we're inconsistent. That's what we are. Like, why do we put so much emphasis on a grade? Like that is the whole point.
People are stupid. People are stupid. Now, I said this like 5 years ago. It's a weird, you see this all the time. It's a weird circle jerk that buyers and sellers do. Because everyone knows these grades are full of shit. Nobody actually cares about them, but they ignore the elephant in the room. They'll have the conversation and they're just trying to flip cards between each other. They just ignore it. It's a really weird sentiment. Like my biggest concern always goes back to, if we ever see a pretty big downturn in this industry, like so many people are going to be holding things that are not worth the thing they're printed on because they're going to have these grading inconsistencies. They're going to be sets that people don't want. There's athletes that people don't want. It's just all artificial. And like I've said this for years, but maybe I'm just old man yelling at the cloud. Like maybe we're never going to see people push back, but I just can't comprehend how people expose themselves to that much risk. And I think the detail and you see stuff like this.
I think that's the thing, right? Like there's people and they can do what they want like that. And then there's and I think I'm the same as you. I'm very conscious of what I collect now. And like I said before, I'm all about the specific card and the rarity of that and the lineage of it and things like that. And I'd rather have it in a PSA 6. Like I would never buy a 10. I've got no PSA 10s in my collection now. I go, cool, everyone wants to pay for a PSA 10. Great. I'll sell it and I'll buy a PSA
8. That's the approach I've taken as well. Because it's crazy. It's like I sold that card recently, that Andre Pirlo, right? And it's because the price point was just too high. I don't want to own that card for that price. I can buy it raw for less. And it was a PSA 8. So I could buy it, it could come back a PSA 3. I wouldn't care. I want the card. And at that price point, it's just too hard to keep.
Not that we're talking about selling, but it's a good sort of thing. And I've spoken to a few people about this lately who've asked for advice, but I always say to people that they should normally, and I think it might have been Teapot who said this once more time, but a few people have said it over the years, and it's a really good way to look at your own collection. And that is to go, what is it worth currently? So let's say a PSA 10 of a card. If it's worth $2,000, right? To ask yourself the question, would you pay $2,000 to buy that card? Yeah. And in 90% of the cases, they go, I wouldn't pay $2,000 to buy that card as a PSA 10. Well, but you are paying that by owning it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You are better selling it.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. You are better selling it and buying $100 one, having that $1,900 to buy other things for your collection, right? And I think people need to self-reflect and a lot of people don't want to because it's a shock to them when they do it, but to go through and say, these 10 cards, comp them out and go, would I pay that to own it? Some cards you will. Like I've got a card that's quite expensive, and I think it's like 110,000 US. I would pay that to own it because I want that because of its rarity and its things. I would. But there's other cards where I'm letting go of expensive cards, and it's because I would not pay that to own.
Yeah, which is it was like a light bulb moment when you said that to me, and it's like a really relevant thing for me, just in general. Like for cards, I have a hard time. I said this before, placing value on cards. Like the industry is insane to me right now. Like these things should be. Like I was buying these things when nobody gave a crap. I did a video recently talking about all the cards I sold before COVID, like in 2017 when I bought my house, and made me sick to my stomach seeing what the prices were today because these things were so cheap. I was buying like LeBron, they were his high school cards that he did with Upper Deck. For they were like $50, and they're like over $1,000 now. So for me, in my head, there were things that people didn't want. I remember sitting there in break rooms and watching people spend all this money for prospects. And nobody gave a crap about Magic Johnson or Larry Bird. For me, I have a hard time placing value on cards.
It is, right? It really is. And I know, and this is where we have a bit of a disagreement. I try and go, like I said, I know you struggle with that. And I kind of go, okay, it's moving into as much as I hate the term for people saying investments, but it is turning into an alternate asset in a way, like a class. But again, I'm very, and this goes back to my grading. Like I think grading, when I said grading's not a scam, and people say it is, and I say I don't think it is. I think it's the perception of being aware it exists. It's just a view of it by someone, and it's there to just give some opinion on it, right? And I think that's the right way to look at it. I think that's the same thing for cards. Like I'm like, I got to be aware that there is value, but it's what are the things that will likely hold value going forward, right? Like, and that's very small amount potentially. And it's the same as art, right? There's so many art pieces out in the world. How many are actually worth stuff? You know, very specific things for certain
funny
people.
money, right? Or artificial value and things like it's valuable to someone.
It is. Well, that's what it is, right? It's what is someone willing to pay for it. As soon as someone's not willing to buy it, it's worth nothing.
Yeah. On that PLR, I feel like I could have sold it for more actually, because the guy like said he's like, yes, way too quick. I was like, fuck. But anyway.
Yeah, but again, that's nitpicking things, right?
Like I didn't expect him to say yes to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of like again the same thing, right? I don't remember what you sold it for, but let's just say, for example, it was sold for 2,000. You might have got 2,500, but again, you ask yourself the question with the number you throw out and say, would I buy it for 2,000? It's like, no. Well, regardless, who cares?
Yep.
You know, I don't care what someone else sells the card. I sell it to them for, as long as I'm happy with what I get.
Yeah. Until you sell a Kirby Bryant patch auto for $700, and then you see someone sold it for 25 grand.
Yeah, you can't look at it like that. Like it's just it's you
gotta. It's like always
same
with crypto, right? People talk all the time. Oh, I should have bought Bitcoin early and things like that, but you know, a million things could have come up that you wouldn't have held it for. So
exactly, you make decisions for a reason at the time. So
the next thing we had on the list was the grading volume that we've seen.
And print runs in general. I think we should, because you just mentioned it before. Like one of the videos, I think we did it back in, was it 2021? Like it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, 22, I think.
Yeah, and we were talking, and it's funny because I just want to mention that because it was post-COVID, right? And I really feel like we're in another COVID period at the moment. Like the grading, the amount of base cards that are getting graded at the moment is absolutely insane. You know, I see on different forums and things like that, people showing their grades and they're for $20 base cards. And I think that's where this backlog is coming from at the moment, right? I don't think it's actually the good cards. I think it's a second COVID era where people are going through and submitting everything. And, you know, PSA is doing the exact same thing they did back during COVID, upping their prices to try and slow it down and trying to stop people sending things that they don't think they should send. Whilst at the same time, they're quite happy for people to send it because it makes them more profits.
Yes.
But I think that's what we're seeing, right? And I think, and I just want to talk on print runs too, because I remember we did a video back on, it was LeBron James Prisms, and I was trying to explain to people about this, you know, artificial rarity, and we all know what that is, and that's the, you know, the different color with a different number on it. Again, does hold value to an extent because people are valuing it more, but you know, all these people buying things that are out at $2.99 and or pulling those things. I think we spoke about them going, oh, people get excited, they get a rookie card out of $2.99, and it's a big thing. You know, it's like, but people failed to realize that there's all those other variations that are rarer than it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's what we were talking about. And
not just in the one product, it's in every product, and there's more product every year.
I was having this chat with someone the other day, and I was trying to explain that across a given player for a given year, you can't just look in an isolated set, right? Even within an isolated set, you've got bases, inserts, all those things, but you need to look at it like in a hierarchy of all the products across that year. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that now with I look at, you know, Cooper Flag's a great example, right? I don't know if you've seen the print runs of 2025 tops at all. No? Oh, we're talking worse than Zion, right? Worse than Zion. And that links to the grading thing. I saw some PSA 10 base tops sell for like $1,200 when they first came out, right? And that's what we always see. The first ones to market go crazy, but there's something like 500,000 of these base cards that are printed. Right, just of the base, like not even going to numbered versions or other products, and even now with the Topps Chrome, like I think people get so excited by hitting a card of his. I think there's something like an estimated 12 or 15,000 Chrome refractors per player, just base refractors.
Crazy.
Which is, and I get that they say there's more people in the market, more collectors, so they need to make more. But it comes back to our whole point we said. But who's going to want that in the end? Like, is someone?
Yeah. The end, who actually wants to own that versus everything else that's being printed?
And that's what you talked about before, right?
It's sets,
changing hands, hot potato, right? And I think going back to what you just said before about the only thing that keeps these things valuable is someone wanting it, right?
Yep.
Now, a lot of people refuse to listen to this, and I just try to help them think about it, same as I made you think about your cards and what it's worth to you, is that 10 years from now, the only thing holding value for something is someone wanting it, right? Who's going to go in 10 years and say, I'm looking for a Cooper Flag base tops PSA 10? Like, that's the card I want. Like,
yeah, the only person that would be
that's
is
the
his
thing.
mum, probably.
Correct, but not even that. She won't say that. She'd say, I want the superfractor, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Yep.
the thing. I think people don't realize, like, there has to be, and you've said this, there has to be a buyer at the end of the line,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
10 years from now, there has to be someone saying, I want that specific card. And I was talking to someone the other day, and they had a Steph Curry, a flawless patch auto, and it had a bit of the tree. And I was saying, and you probably know, there's so many flawless patch autos for Curry across these years. It's like 500 every year. And I was saying, who's going to specifically say, I want a 2018 Steph Curry flawless patch auto that has half the tree in it?
Yep.
Like they're going to say, hey, I want a Steph Curry 2009 National Treasures RPA to 99. Like, that's what someone will say, I want that card.
Yep.
And I think people fail to think about like that. And it's almost like the same principle of the things that go on PSA. They just don't want to. Like, it's like you want to put your head in the sand and just ignore it.
Ignore the elephant in the room, right? They don't want to think about it. Like, for me, that's why it always comes back to, you never, like, for the average person, you're never going to be able to buy his rookie RPA, right? Or his RPA. Yeah. So you then, okay, well, what can I buy? So you go to, okay, first year flawless. That's, okay, maybe a bit too expensive. So what years did what years did they win? Did they win the championship? What years did he break certain records?
Yep.
And then you try and find those. Then it's like, well, okay, I can't afford those, so let's try and find what on-card autos I can get, or what kind of match one memorabilia I can get. And that's sort of where you'd sort of go down the path. Like, that all makes sense to me, but people are not doing that, and they're just going for everything, not realizing that this stuff is not, like, who wants that long term? Where's the relevance coming from? You have to look at it through your own eyes. Like, you don't want to pay for that long term. You're buying it maybe as a whole to sell down the line, but you put everything in front of everyone. They're going to pick the same things every time because they want things that matter.
And I think that's the point, right? Like, people are paying all this, and that's why it's really hard for people to separate it themselves. You got to go, I'm paying all this money for something because it's got this inherent value, because that's what people deem it to be worth. But again, it's at the end of the line. Are people still going to want that? And I think people really struggle to see that disconnection there, like, and separate themselves from outside perspective and go, okay. And I agree with you. Like, I go through my own hierarchy and I go, like, what are things that matter? Every rookie year for any player, there's so many sets. And again, most of them, cool, their rookie year, they'll have some value, but they're not the things that people are going to want. And that's what, there's many cards of, say, Steph Curry, for example, I'd rather over some of these rookie cards, because they're kind of just rookie cards that aren't really that meaningful besides a rookie year. Like, people aren't going, I want this Panini Studio card or something like that. Again, I'd go the same way, and I'd go, okay, what are things that mean stuff? 2012 Prism, right? It's an iconic set. Again, I don't care about the base cards in there, but I'd love to own I'm not going to own one ever, but a gold refractor, right? Because there's only 3 parallels that existed, silver, green, and gold. But again, it's what's the meaning behind the set? What's the relevance? Why is someone downstream going to care about that in the future? And that's, I know you've harped about it for years and years on your channel.
I've talked about it for so long. People just don't seem receptive to it. I think they get misguided because of all the demand that's out there. And I've called it artificial liquidity in the past, but I've recently started calling it artificial demand, because you've got people that are chasing these things and they get comfortable that these things are out there being bought and sold, and that's just masking the actual relevance of the card in the first place. Like, and I think, like, things like repacks are driving that as well, right? Which is also probably why you're seeing so many base cards get graded, because they need liquidity, right, for their product. But I just think it's never going to, I can't see it improving. People just don't want to be receptive to it.
No, and I think it's the hot potato game, right? Like, that people are happy buying it because they see them transacting for money right now, the basings. And it's until the gravy train stops and no one wants that card anymore. And we've talked about this before privately and things. And I think it's just that people just don't want to know the truth or don't want to hear it. It's a shock to them. And I talk to people all the time, Cooper Flag, people spending all this money, and they go, he's a great player. And I go, sure, but what player has ever been cared about unless they win many titles and many MVPs, right?
Yep. Yeah. Look at people, like Luke is your example, right?
Yeah, and they go, oh, no, he can win. I'm like, yeah, sure, but he's still got to get past Shea. He's still got to get past Jokic. He's still got to get past Edwards. He's still got to get past the Tatum and the Celtics. He's still got to, and that's just now, not even, and Wemby and their teams, and not even including any new stars that come the next few years. Like, and that's before he even gets a chance to win something, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I think people forget that. Like you look at Tatum, and I think people forget he's been around 9 years now. Like great player, won one title with Celtics. Not many people going, oh, I want this big Tatum card, right? It's just they move on to the next thing. And it's, again, I just don't think people want to know. They want to put their head in the sand and imagine everything's.
I think something will happen eventually, right? Like we saw it with watches during the pandemic. I've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
That was a little bit different because the supply is not as high as what it is for cards. But essentially what happened with watches was you had dealers selling the same watch between each other, and the price was never being realized because it was never ending up in the hands of a collector. And you essentially had $10,000 Submariners all of a sudden start selling for like $30,000 USD at the peak or whatever it was. But what kind of person actually wants to pay $30,000 for a $10,000 watch? So that thing came down really quickly because you essentially just had dealers wanting to get their hands on stock. So they were just essentially buying it all. And, I think we see that with repackers a lot in this space, which creates all this, weird demand and flippers and repackers. It's worrying because I feel like people see that and get comfortable and then take more risk than they should. And I don't want to see people get, burned off the back of it because I still think this thing could go downward really quickly. Yeah, sure, there's shows now, but they could stop overnight for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
There's a measles outbreak going on in the world right now. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, true. And just to circle back though to the grading things, and I think that's part of it, right? I think TCG is making up the predominant amount of that, and we've talked about this, which is concerning in its own thing. I'm not going to pretend I'm a Pokemon expert, but we spoke about this, that no one knows the print runs of these Pokemon cards. There's that, which is a scary thing in itself.
Yep.
I think
they're still printing sets that came out 2 or 3 years ago or something. I'm pretty sure.
Or the felt hat's a great example. That Pikachu felt hat one, right? I think the PSA 10 is like 50,000 or some extreme amount, yet it's still going for $1,800 a card.
Yeah, let me see. That's
only
those the card letter and see.
Yeah, but something like that. I could be wrong, but I know it's something and crazy.
It was something insane like that. There was more than Jordans, right?
Yeah, and it's just I think again, people just either don't want to know, or I just don't know if it's that or being naive. Like, and it's really scary and concerning because again, it's going to be who's holding the bag at the end of this.
Yeah,
and again,
I was just saying, like people they know it's like I think a lot of people know that it's like this, but they just ignore it. It's like they do this weird dance with each other. They both the buyer and seller, when you see them flipping, this modern crap and the stuff that's, overprinted and not really something that people want long term. They both know it's crap, but they're pretending they don't. And they're both pretending they're getting one up over the other person. It's just a weird dance that goes on.
And I'm all fine for people buying that stuff and wanting, like, if they want to pay that money for a PSA 10 base 2 tops Cooper flag, that's fine. As long as they're aware and conscious of the fact that what could happen to it, right? Like, I think that's the thing. Like, you can't tell people what to collect and everyone should collect their own thing, but it's just about as long as you're aware and knowing these things are happening or knowing that's what could happen and knowing you've got all these things above it.
Yeah, for sure. They need to be aware, and that's part of what like conversation like this are going to help with, right? But yeah, there's 40.
I said 50,000. So not far off, right? And I'm not a Pokemon person.
48,009 far out.
Yeah, again, so that's my point though, and there's no visible difference in most instances between a 9 and a 10. Like it's just, and I think when I spoke about the LeBron James, I think with pop counts too, people struggle to think about this. They go, oh, there's 48,000 9s, but I'm like, yeah, but you've also got to add in the 48,000 10s above it because they're rarer. Like they've got to be included in the same count. There's 90,000 of your same card at a PSA 9 level.
Yeah, then you look at BGS and SGC and CGC as well.
Before you even get to that, and that's what I mean. And again, going back to my question, and again, so many people push back on this stuff, but I really hope your audience, looks at their own collection and says, would I pay X value to own this card? And ask themselves the question and say, is someone going to want this card in 10 years from now? If you're keeping it forever and you don't care, you've got to imagine it's worth $0 now, that's fine. But if you're holding it and you've got a lot of money in that card, you've got to ask yourself, who's going to want that down the line?
Yeah. That's the question, right, that people need to be asking. Especially
and people don't want to
the peak.
And people go all the time, I don't care if my collection goes to 0. And I'm like, they say that, but I'm very sure most people care.
You do. Especially when you've probably spent, 5+ figures on your collection, right?
Correct. You care. Like, as much as you want to tell yourself you don't, you will care because like you said, you feel crap that you sold Kobe's for $700 and they're worth $3,000 now, right? It'll be the opposite thing where you go, oh, my $3,000 car's now worth 0. You'll feel crap about it.
Yeah, especially even like you do something like I do, right, where I fund my collection through the collection. So I've talked about that a lot. Like I'll basically really only buy cards if I can sell them and use those profits to pay for other things, right? Because it makes me feel more comfortable. It just makes collecting more appropriate for me, because I hate, paying, $3,000 for something that I could put towards my kids or something along those lines, right? But if I pay for it with profits, it makes it more comfortable. But even then, if this industry goes to zero, sure, I'm not out of pocket anything, but
But you still are.
I could have the what's the word I'm looking for? Like I could have, right? So yeah.
Yeah, you still are at a pop, even though you haven't spent anything. They still were worth X value at some time, and you'll be thinking back, "Oh, I wish I sold it for that because now it's worth nothing."
Yep, that was good. We have two other things on the list. One is the best card you've ever pulled, and then your favorite recent pickup. Maybe we can do the pickup first because I've got one.
Yeah, I got a funny story, so I'll go first. I got a funny story. So I help people occasionally with collections who just have stuff and they want to get rid of it. And a friend of mine had sent me a message and said his wife's friends had some cards, knew I knew stuff about cards, and said they want to see if they got anything worth stuff. So I was like, I went over there and I was like, oh, these sort of cards here, yeah, you can get money for. These ones are going to be worth 50 cents each. So just, put them on Gumtree or whatever, or Facebook Marketplace, and just see if someone's come buy them. I said, these ones you can send overseas. You'll probably get $5,000 or something for them. And they were quite shocked, all sports cards.
Nice.
So I helped them with that just to get them over there so that they get sold for them. But they said, I got pretty much all sport cards. They said they had one non-sports card. And I was like, oh, what is it, right? And you know how broad non-sports cards is. And I don't know if, I think you might remember, I talked about my favorite music artist, and I'm not sure if you remember this.
No.
A rapper, but by chance the one card they had was a Ludacris autograph.
Oh, nice.
I have all this collection of 1,000 cards of sport cards, baseball, NFL. They had one non-sports card, and it was Ludacris autograph. And it's been my favorite artist forever. And I don't have a single Ludacris card. Didn't even know he had a card. So I bought it off the guy. Yeah. So I looked at comps. It was like $150 US. So I paid him for it because I was like, it was meant to be, right? The fact I went to some random person's house I'd never met to help them with their sports cards, and they had one non-sports card, and it happened to be a Ludacris.
It's so weird how stuff like that happens, right? There was like a break I entered into like 10 years ago with Stevic. Do you remember? Did you ever break with him from, what was the Eureka, right?
I've had limited breaking. It was during COVID. I went through my phase and realized it was going to cost a lot of money, and I made the smart choice to stop it.
Yeah, so I stopped early too. I was spending a lot of money, actually. Part of the reason why I stopped, because I get a really addictive personality. But he used to do really random breaks and get some really cool stuff, and it was a lot of fun. And there was like, I hadn't broken with him for ages, and there was like a random one that I entered into. It was like a 10-spot break. I forget what product it was, but something randomly made me decide to go ahead and enter this thing. I hadn't broken for a while. And then we were talking about the Karate Kid movie at some point during the break.
Yep.
And I was telling a story about how my grandfather used to call me Danielson. Obviously, my name's Daniel, and he used to call me Danielson, which is the character from the movie, right? And I ended up winning the break, and it was a completely random thing that he'd already set up. He didn't announce what like the giveaway prize was, and it was a signed Ralph Macchio picture, which I thought was pretty cool. Just random stuff like that happens, right? I was like, it was completely irrelevant to the whole thing, and it just happened to be one of the giveaway things. And
what's the odds, right? And that's why I had to buy it. Like I was not hunting for I didn't know he had cards. I wasn't hunting for a thing ever for him, but I was like, just the fact that it was there, I'm like, I got to get it. Like it's it
had to be. How much you paid for it? You want to say?
$150 US. So that's what it was worth. Nice. And I was like, it's meant to be. So it's not expensive.
Is it on card or pack pulled order?
On card. Yeah, pack card.
Is that Alan Ginter?
Yeah, Alan Ginter. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see it. I'll try and. But so
that's sick.
Yeah. So I was like, looked at it.
What's he holding in his hand?
He is holding a microphone. So it's a microphone. I don't know if I can get the glare off.
Oh yeah, it looks like a WWE belt or something.
So I was. It was just. I was just the odds of it. And I was just shocked. Like his favorite artist, my dog's name's Luda. Like it was just odds of
meant to be.
Yeah, I had to get it. What about yourself?
I picked this up the other week, actually. It's a Dragon Ball Z card, so a Neon non-sport. But this is a pack-pulled autograph of the voice actor who played Vegeta. So this is from 94. So these are actually really rare, these autographs. There's not too many pack-pulled autographs in Dragon Ball Z, but this set came out in 1994 in Japan. It's called Hero Collection, and it covers like the latest series of the show. But what they did, Artbox, was a company who did the US releases, was in 2001, they took the Japanese set and re-released them in the US, basically exactly the same. They didn't do anything other than the fact that they added autographs in there from the voice actors. They put them in hobby boxes. We don't know how many hobby boxes were actually made, but this thing is like super rare. So I was happy to add that into the PC. He's like my favorite character from the show, and it's rare. So I've had other autographs of this in the past from other later sets, but these ones are a lot rarer.
I think that's the true way to know something's rare, right? When there's no print run, like to look at how often they come up. Right?
Yeah,
If they
like
don't come
I
up
don't think
for sale, you know it's rare.
I've never seen another one of the Vegetas come up. I've seen some of the other characters, but they've sold for a lot more. So it just so happened to be that the seller was based in Sydney, and they had it listed, I think, for 350 AUD. I sent them an offer for 200. I had a $40 coupon off eBay, and I had a $170 gift card from work. So it essentially cost me $0.
Oh, free.
Obviously,
free.
like I could have used a gift card for work somewhere else, but yeah, pretty happy to get this. So I'm going to send it to PSA, which is unlike me, but I think it's got a good chance of getting a 10. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, there you go, chasing that grading.
Yeah.
That was
But I've not bought a whole lot lately. I've actually been selling a lot. So I sold that PLO, like I said. I sold a lot of my Dragon Ball Z collection. Sold my Variety one that I had. I sold a lot of things.
I got some cards back. I sent some cards to PSA, irrelevant in the grades. It was more like I said, I opened some Pikachu, some Pokemon cards at Christmas, and I was just like, they were just cool cards. They're only worth $100 each, but I was just like, I just wanted to grade them for when, for whatever. They're not that good. Don't really care what they graded. It was purely just to put them in something to keep for the memory of opening it.
You can't even really do it because they've just raised prices again and turnaround times, which is annoying. But because we sent off stuff last year at the same sort of time, right? It was around the Hobby Hangout.
Yeah, and that's I guess like 2 days later. One coming up again soon. Actually, plan to come up there with you again if you're going to go.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm going to probably bring some more things. I'm going to plan ahead this time. But speaking of the Hobby Hangout, the other thing I had was like probably the best card you ever pulled. I don't think this is, and nothing will top the best card I ever pulled. Like it was done in a break for me.
Yeah.
Grayson hit me that Kobe Bryant RPA, not RPA, patch order out of 10. But I bought some boxes for the Hobby Hangout last year. I think you know this, right?
Yeah.
One of them was a select Euro box, and then also a select Mosaic box. And I was like, oh, I'll try and sell them. If not, I'm just going to rip them. Neither of them sold. I was like, okay, I don't want to rip them because some other things didn't sell, so I want to try and make my money back. I was stressing out a bit on that. And then some guy that was an Italy fan reached out to me. He's like, oh, I want to buy your select Euro box because I want to try to chase some Italy autos. And I'm like, oh, I've also got a Mosaic box here. Do you want to buy both? I'll give you a good deal. I was like, no, I just want the select box. So he buys the select box. He got skunked, right? He paid good money for the box and didn't really get anything. And then I was like, okay, this Mosaic box is not selling. I'm just going to open it. And I got the Paolo Maldini autograph, I think, again, similar to what we were saying earlier, right? I bought this box because I wanted to try and get some Italian players, and I got probably the best Italian player you can get in the box. Greatest defender of all time.
And you almost sold it though, which is the thing, right? Like,
yeah. And it was just like funny that the guy I almost sold it to was chasing Italy players. And I sent it to him afterwards. I felt bad sending it to him, the photo, but
the chance.
Things that are meant to be. And what's interesting is the last probably hobby box that I ripped open would have been Select Mosaic. And I did that in December 2024, I think, because I bought some for a Christmas gift. Maybe it was 2023. Cherry Collectibles had them for like $120 each. It was a no-brainer to buy them. And I got, Nesta back then. Yeah. So I've opened 2 boxes and got 2 Italians. You can't.
2 Italians. What's the odds, right? Like,
yeah, definitely loaded boxes, right? But the Maldini one is also pretty good. I might send that off to get graded as well, just because I don't want it staying in the one touch. My kids have a habit now of coming in this room and trying to climb onto shit, and the last thing I want is my cards.
I think that's the thing where grading's fine, right? Like, he's not just not caring about what the number says, but just getting it secure and away from elements and things like that, just so it's in something. I think it's got
its purpose, right? It's got a purpose. It's got a place. Like it needs to be there, but people just are placing way too much trust in it. It's
correct, and what the number says.
It's just dumb. But I think that's it. Unless you had other things.
No, I was just going to say I haven't really my period primarily opening a lot of boxes again was COVID. I kept buying heaps back then. Again, because you're just kind of stuck at home. And then I think the best thing I ever pulled, and I've never been lucky in boxes, I got an Elite Pen Pal Zion auto from 2019. So it's a rookie one. I was lucky enough to sell it. I was like, it was cool to get the best player of the whole thing. And it was out of 35. I think I sold it for $1,500 in 2021 maybe. And now I look back and it's selling for like $50 now. So I'm very glad I sold it.
So that's again, I would the billing.
I was more opening for fun, and I think that's a better way for me to open it. Like, I don't care what comes out of it. I'm like, whatever comes out, I get rid of and try and offset the cost. I'm opening because I like the fun of it, and hence the Pokemon. I don't have any idea what I'm looking for in those things. It's not my thing.
Yeah, but it's fun, right? And that's the part that sucks. Like that is not, that element of the hobby is not accessible anymore, at least for the most part, because you can't have the fun when you're paying, like we said earlier, $1,000 for a box.
Can't do
and
it.
you're getting $50 worth of cards.
No, can't. And
So,
that's where, coming back to the breaks, right? So I'm the same as you, a bit of addictive personality. And so I used to do breaks back in COVID time because you're stuck at home. And I stopped it. And it's because it's one of the reasons I don't like slot machines for Americans or poker machines here, because I feel crap losing the money. Like if I lose money, like, and that's why I can't do expensive boxes, because that just makes me feel sick. Like,
I'm exactly the same. And I have to control myself. So I was fortunate that I got ahead in terms of breaking. So like I probably broke even or made a little bit of money in the end. But it's such a slippery slope, which is why I'm so passionate about it, because people don't understand. Like I'm like that with everything. I've got at least got self control where I can walk away. And obviously when you're chasing your tail, like it's really hard to do, but not everyone's like that, which is why these platforms need to do more to protect consumers, because it's scary, it's not sustainable, and it's going to do some serious damage to people.
Well, that's what grading is gambling too, right? In a different type of way. Like you're purely going for, you're breaking boxes and opening boxes nowadays, not for a collector mostly, but for the adrenaline hit, trying to chase the big ROI.
Yep.
So that's a gambling itself. And grading, you're sending it off because you're hoping it gets a 10, so the value goes up and you can sell it and keep doing it again.
Yeah. Well, the only good thing about grading in regards to that element, though, is their turnaround times are so slow that it gives you time to digest and think about your mistakes that you've done, right? Whereas when you're on Whatnot and Fanatics Live, you just keep pressing that button.
Yeah, it is. It's again, it's that stuff needs to be regulated. It's a slot machines. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I'm shocked, especially here in Australia, they've not got across it yet.
I don't know if they know about it.
Well, I just find it ridiculous on Whatnot now. If you don't hit anything, they send you a random base card, because that's the way they're getting around the whole gambling aspect. Because
you didn't get nothing, you got something, you bought something.
I remember in like 2015, there used to be Facebook groups for breaks and razzes all the time, and they used to get shut down all the time because they're illegal.
They're still there. They're still there. Facebook groups
still run, but they used to get shut down. Like it was, they'd get moved around. I don't think they care anymore. But I remember, like, because I was in them all the time, they'd get shut down because they're against the law.
Yeah. But going back to eBay then, but they're their own, and this is a eBay problem. Like you make a complaint about it, and it goes to the eBay AI agent, who says, sorry, nothing wrong with the listing. But it's like, but that is purely, like, even if they were putting the card in the pack, which they're not, it is gambling. Like it's.
Well, like I said, it's going to get fixed at some point.
And
like
kids,
people have
kids on eBay. Like
exactly.
Stuff.
Exactly. One thing very quickly before we finish is I was on that, like I said, that live stream with Mike Geo, and he was talking about when I challenged on, Whatnot and Fanatics Live needing to do something to stop the gambling. And he's like, well, eBay also do live selling. And eBay are publicly listed. But from eBay's perspective, the repacks and all the live selling that goes on their platform would not be material to their business. It'd be such a small segment. Like, yes, a lot of money would be going through there, but eBay sell billions of dollars worth of things. Like, I don't know how frequently the number is, but they're selling billions of dollars worth of items very frequently. A few $100 million from some breaking and live selling is not material to that, which is why it doesn't need to be looked at, because it only does its material.
Quickly, though, have you looked at the categories and how much things are selling?
No, I've not done that for a while. Maybe I should.
I think nowadays, so the collectible side is getting very big in there. Like it's almost equivalent to the electronics and clothing and those things. It's getting.
But that's just collectible sales in general, right? Not just. So when I'm talking about material transactions, it's just the live selling aspect. So like for that to be looked at from a financial statement audit perspective, I think it would have to be material.
Yeah,
and I don't think
it'd be 0.5% kind of thing versus the 11% for normal card sales. Yeah.
But that was really good. Thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we finish up? I think
I hope people just think about what you've sort of said. Again, it's hard for people to reflect and to try and not feel like they've made a bad choice or anything like that. It's trying to just.
Sorry to cut you off, but now's the time to do that, right? When things are really good, it's a good time to self-reflect, consolidate. The best person at that in this hobby that I've seen is like Adam, the real 27 guy, whatever his name is on Instagram. He consolidates all the time. He's doing it at the moment, selling a lot of things. Like you need to be very clinical about this sort of stuff, and it's probably better to sell too early than it's definitely better to sell too early than too late.
It is. And I saw someone this morning just mentioned consolidation. Like again, Teapot. I resonate with Teapot for some of his things. Jeff drives me nuts in a lot of things.
Yeah.
I used to be a fan of Jeff's. Nowadays I don't like him, but he's done some really good videos years ago about like the standard phases every collector goes through. And you go through of nostalgia to start with, and that's you jumping back in the hobby and buying things that you used to sort of remember, and then you go through and you start to buy lots of things. Just want to downsize and target my stuff more, and then you normally go to start to buy some vintage stuff, and then you go back to a consolidation phase in the end where you start to go even more narrow focus. And I think that's the thing right now is a good time to reevaluate and go, what do I need? Ask yourself the question, would I pay that for it? If not, move it on, do it for something else outside the hobby. Or if you want to use it in the hobby, buy some targeted things that, again, you know you're going to want 10 years from now, so other people.
Yep. Definitely. That's advice that everybody needs to hear. I might go back and try and find that video actually and do like a 2026 reaction to it.
Yeah.
So maybe if you know which videos they were, let me know. But we'll leave it there. I think did we say we want to try and do this fortnightly? Monthly?
Yeah, sure. Happy, open to your audience. Like I said, I think one of the good things you wanted to do is get some audience questions and stuff like that to actually talk about.
Yeah, so we'll get those included as well. And I think like the benefit of doing this with you, number one, and obviously you got really good insights and some really good commentary, but we're both based in Australia, so it gives me and you a lot more flexibility when these things need to happen, right? Because when I've tried to do this with people in the States or even try and do live streams, they need to be done in like the middle of the day, and it's just way too hard to manage. But this should be good. So I'll release this plus a few clips off the back of it, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, just let us know what questions you have, ask them down in the comments below, and then we can also include them in the next video that we do. So thanks everyone. Let us know how you enjoyed it, what you liked, didn't like, and then we'll try and fix it and improve moving forward. Cheers.
Enjoy your afternoon.